I'm like, all right. There we go. Okay, so today's lesson is going to focus on shape. I don't know how many of you have done this exercise with me. How many of you have done this?
I've done it.
Okay, Diana's done it. All right, so if you have done it, you're welcome to do it again. Don't tell the other people what we're doing. If you haven't done it, I'm going to want you to, here, I'm going to put this, I can see the computer gets confused. What I'm going to have you do is, as quickly as possible, you're going to draw a box on your paper, and you're going to repeat what's happening here in your blank box. Okay, but before you do that, so let's get this out of the way so we don't confuse people. Before you do that, we're going to define some terms. And here they are. Are you ready? The first question's really complicated. What is that? What is that? Somebody.
Circle.
A circle, right. Why is, there we go. So what's this?
Kidney.
No.
Yeah. Could be a kidney, right? Right, here we go. Oh, I see, my computer is, hold on, got it. Okay. My computer wants to do different things. Come on, focus on my hand. There we go. Right, so when we look at this, our idea of a circle is really only this perfectly round circle. But when you are thinking in drawing terms, a circle is actually a family of shapes, and it's kind of roundish with no sharp edges. So anything could be circle-ish. We like to call it the circle family. And there are 5 families of shape. In which we pretty much draw everything. So, sorry, there we go. Can you guys see how that might be helpful to have a concept of a circle as more than just, oh, I see. There we go. Come on. I'm shaking the table and the computer doesn't like it. All right, so besides, what are the other 5 families? We've got the dot family, which is just like the circle family, except everything's filled in. So we have dots where it's kind of clear on the inside, where it's filled in on the inside, anything roundish with no sharp edges. And then there's the circle where it's clear on the inside. And then somebody tell me what the shape of their doorway is. Take a look at your doorway. What's the shape?
Rectangle.
Rectangle.
Yeah, rectangle.
Yeah, a square door would be weird looking. I guess if you had 2 doors together, 2 rectangular doors together.
Yes, if you were really short and fat.
Right. However, we don't have a square family of shape. This is what we've got. We've got straight lines. We've got angle lines. And we have curved lines. So straight lines can be thick, they can be thin, they can be little, they can be big. Angle lines are just 2 straight lines put together. It can be wide, it can be narrow. And curved lines are just curved lines. They can be small curves, they can be big curves, they can even be curly like a snail shell. So these are the 5 families of shape of which we can draw anything. So if you were going to describe the shape of your door, what would it be?
Same answer, rectangle.
No, there's no rectangle family of shape. Hi, Geraldine, nice to see you.
Yes, series
No
of
family of shape. There's no rectangle.
Shapes, okay, straight lines.
Yes.
straight lines and angled lines.
But Diana, you're not allowed to participate in this, surely.
She likes it. It's fun for her.
Oh, I do that.
Yeah,
You're right.
I think she probably knows. All right, so your doorway could be a couple of different things constructed from these shapes. It could be 2 angle lines put together. It could be 1 thick straight line if it's dark on the outside. It could be 4 straight lines put together. So as you can see, we are constructing, shape is kind of looking at how to construct and deconstruct different images to see the types of lines and shapes that we've got in them. So going back to this, what families of shape are here? Oh, here, I'll put this up so you can see this. What families of shape are here? What are represented in this box?
All the different line families.
So say them out loud.
Straight lines, angle lines, and curved lines.
Yep, straight lines, angle lines, curved lines. Are there any dots or circles?
No.
Mm-mm. Did you find yourself hesitating? Were you wondering what to do about what's happening down here? Okay, I want you to observe this reaction in yourself, right? Because this really is a curved line, but your desire is to turn it into a circle, right? But we don't know, right? But notice that like these curved lines are pretty easy to see, right? These angle lines are pretty easy to see. These curved lines are easy to see. When you look at something like this and you kind of anticipate it might be part of something else, you start trying to guess what it is. That is your left brain kind of getting you into trouble. So without further ado, I want you to give yourself a square box, and then I want you to, as quickly and closely as you can, I'll do it here so you know what I'm talking about. You're going to copy what's happening in the box here, up here. What's happening up here? And you can do it kind of any way you want. I tend to work at the edges where I see things. So I kind of come along here. Where am I? So just as quickly as you can, recreate what's happening. We've really had a great first week. It's been great to be back. We're going to do so many things this year. I'm really excited. And when you're done, hold it up so I can see you're all done, or hold your hand up, or I like the looks, very nice. Are we done?
Almost.
Anybody not? Okay. Let me know when you're done.
I'm done.
That is Sandra's, those are Sandra's Bengals waiting for their chicken to come out of the oven.
Do you want us to send these in, Leo, or just hold them
Yes,
up?
if you want to send them in. Oh, right. Pari, let me add you to the thread. Yeah, go ahead and send them in.
We have very spoiled animals in this class.
We were laughing. I was telling them, Sandra, while you were gone. All right, excellent, Julia. Looks great. Anybody
It's
else
very
want to send
cold.
theirs in? I was telling them that your cats were waiting for the chicken breast to get out of the oven.
Actually, the chicken breast, not cooking it, but we have snow and it's -2 Celsius outside. It's really cold, but
Oh,
there's a
my
lot of birds in
word.
the bushes, and Dragon wants to go out.
Oh, of course he does. All right. So when you're done, go ahead and send that out. Bettina, excellent. These look great. So far, these look great. While we're waiting for everybody else to send them in, tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how difficult is this assignment? With 1 being easy, 10 being difficult. How difficult is this assignment? What would you rate it?
Like a 2.
A 2. Okay. So what's the hard? If there's anything hard, what is the hard? Does anybody have a different feeling about that, by the way? 2? Anybody think it's harder than a 2? Pretty easy, right?
I've done it once before and it's easier than it used to be.
Ah, that's a good sign. Bettina, well done. So if you remember what this is, don't tell, all right? All right, so the next question, if this is like a 1 to 2 on a scale of, you probably found it's a little bit difficult to get things in the right places. We tend to make things too big, right? And then you don't leave space. That's probably kind of where they lay on the paper. So that's what we're going to be practicing today. And notice that's I want to make it clear. Oh, I totally forgot my last lines here. I want you to observe that about yourself, because it is absolutely true that all of us tend to make things too big when we draw them. So one of the things to tell yourself as you're working is that we're making things bigger than they need to be when you're trying to draw something. And we're going to talk about why in a minute. What is this?
By the way,
Any guesses?
Leah, you're recording, right?
Oh, yes, I am. Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you for reminding me. Yeah, I mean, yes, but
Okay, just in case.
yes. So for those of you who don't know what this is, you guess, what is this that we're drawing? What is this? What is it?
Looks like tree bark.
Okay. Maybe tree bark. What else? Other guesses?
Is it somebody's clothing or something? Is it like
Somebody's clothing. That's another guess. Any more guesses before I show you?
This.
All right. This is a drawing by Picasso of his friend Igors Drawing. And does this look a little bit more familiar?
Oh, right.
All right.
Leg upside down.
So I want to ask you this question. I want you to answer it seriously. If I had started this beginning drawing class without talking about shape, if I just presented this drawing to you and said, here, hold on, I'm getting a little bit more tape here. If I just presented this drawing to you and said, hi, this is a Picasso drawing of Igor Stravinsky. I want you to draw the legs of this Picasso drawing. How hard would that be on a scale of 1 to 10?
11.
11, right? It's impossible. So here's what's really interesting to me. How is something that's a completely doable skill that you rated as a 2 become an 11 when we change the directions? What is happening? What is going on? So here it is, the big reveal, the big lecture on what's going on. What's going on is the difference between right and left brain. Let's talk a little bit about that. Some of you have heard this. I apologize. I think we can never reiterate it too long. Concepts of right and left brain. What's the right brain? What's the left brain? What's your concept of the right and left brain?
So left is creative, right is logical.
So thank you for walking right into that, Party, because it's wrong, but it's so widely believed, right. But it's so widely believed that everyone answers the same. And I have taught this lesson all over the world, right? And I walked you into that. So yeah, creative and logical. I want you to think about those words. We have a lot of word people in here. Why are you? I want you to think about those words for a second and see that, yeah, there we are. it's a false dichotomy that you've created here. You have created the idea that to be creative is not to be logical. To be logical is not to be creative, right? In reality, and of course, what we really know is different parts of the brain can take up different parts of the job of the brain. But in terms, I like to think of the left brain as what we call verbal conceptual. And I like to think the right brain as visual spatial. Now think about these words. They're much more specific. They're much less judgmental. They're much less like one is right and the other is wrong. Right? Just depending on who you are. So verbal conceptual is what we're all in from the moment we're born, learning to talk, learning our language. Verbal conceptual is learning that, and here I'm going to add myself here, is learning that words are attached to concepts. And so you have to have a picture in your mind of what a thing is so that you know what it is we're talking about. So here's a classic example. This is my hand. This is my head, right? So whatever language, some of you know it in several different languages, right? You have this idea in your head. So you don't need to see a picture of a hand to know what it is. You know what a hand is. You don't need to see a picture of a head to know what a head is. And because your verbal conceptual brain is always working, you're constantly gathering more information about that word. For example, in English, we say, let me give you a hand, right? That's I don't know if this is said in other languages, but I know in English it's said. And you also, as word people, know what that means, right? So you're adding and building to your concept. So let's build to your concept a little bit more. Is the hand bigger or smaller than the head? Bigger or smaller?
Same.
The same?
It's smaller.
Smaller, thank you.
Well, smaller, yeah.
All right, what about now?
Bigger.
Bigger.
Okay, did anybody find themselves, I don't know how to answer that, confused by the answer to that question? Here's why. Because you have quickly added to your verbal conceptual side that the hand is smaller than the head. So when I move the hand here, it's confusing. Your verbal conceptual is already registered. It's smaller than the head, right? So notice what happened when we drew this exercise. When you don't, the visual spatial side, the right brain, does not care what a thing is. It does not care what it's called. In visual spatial terms, everything is relational to everything else. And that means this thing is smaller when it's farther away. And it's bigger when it comes up front. This thing doesn't even, the visual spatial doesn't even care, is this thing connected to this thing? Doesn't even care. So when you don't know what something is, it's easier to see shapes, right? All visual spatial cares about is shapes in relation to each other. So the logical rules of right brain are very different than the logical rules of left brain. There are no fixed concepts of things and how they are in relation to each other. There are fixed concepts, but they're different concepts. When you're drawing something, why is this a 2 and this an 11? Because when you don't know what you're drawing, it's easier to see the shape of the thing. Does that make sense? Is anybody's mind blown right now? I see you all make this mistake all the time. Anybody who's been in class with me, I see you make this mistake all the time. I make this mistake all the time. Okay, so we're constantly, the real problem between visual spatial thinking and verbal conceptual thinking is that a different set of rules are important in visual spatial. Not only that, verbal conceptual is really bossy. It likes to be in charge. likes to tell you that what you're looking at is this and that and the other thing based on its vast experience. Verbal conceptual is out of its depth. And if we start to practice the visual spatial, you've kind of got to shut it up. That's why you're going to draw this entire thing today upside down. Okay. Not only are you going to draw this thing today upside down, because we're really going to be practicing on shape, I'm going to have you do a couple of things. So I want you to take a piece of paper. This is A4 computer paper. If you want to use that same size, you're fine, but a 9x12 or something similar should work just fine with similar proportions. So I want you to take your blank piece of paper and do what I'm about to do right now. I'm going to fold it once exactly in half. And then I'm going to fold it again. Exactly in half. So that when I open it, it's divided into 4 quarters. Put this up. So not only, and here I'll make it even simpler. I'm going to draw in pink. Pink? Maybe purple. I'll use a pencil. I'm going to draw these in. You can draw them in if you want to, or you just can work with the folds. I think it's easier. Some time to see.
I'm drawing Picasso today. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I wasn't mute.
There we go. Oops. So I'm drawing in these lines so you can really see them. You're welcome to do this if you want to. At the end of this class, you're not necessarily going to be super. This is about a process. This is a process assignment. It's not really a, I want to make this perfect, although work as hard as you want to do as much as you can. So there's a couple of things. One is I'd recommend starting with this quarter because you've already drawn part of it. The other thing I do is I kind of look at where all of the lines start around the edges of the thing. If you start with these shapes, they help you kind of place everything else, right? You start with kind of like, I can locate a dot here and then move this way. And then you know you get to move that way, right? The other way. So your job is redraw this. Upside down. I don't want to see anybody doing this right side up. If you're doing it right side up, you're just into self-torture. Everybody got it? And while we're doing this, we'll chit chat. I can talk. You're going to divide your paper into 4 quarters by folding it. If you want to, you can take a straight edge. And then with your pencil, you're going to draw this whole thing. That's your assignment for today's class. So we're really focusing on shape. We're focusing on not what a thing is. And you're learning, this lesson is going to show you where you tend to go off the rails and move into left brain when you should be staying in right. By the way, it's a very common saying that you can't learn to be a good drawer until you've made 10,000 mistakes. So I'm helping you go on the way. This is not about perfection here. This is about actually watching what your brain does and feeling the battle between left and right and forcing the left into submission. Like basically saying, left, you're not helping me here. Your analytical skills aren't doing it for me right now. They're not helpful in this situation. And Sandra and Diana, what are you guys working on today?
I'm gonna do a lemur.
Lemon in watercolor?
Yes, but I'm drawing it now. I'll show it to you. I mean,
Excellent.
well, let me see. Hold on.
Mm-hmm. And Diana, you're still working. Are you planning on finishing that horse today?
No, but I'm working on it.
Okay. We don't think we
This
can
is-
set some. Let's see. Oh,
This is
let's
the
see.
photo.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
not
yeah.
my daughter. That's the photo.
Love it.
I'm gonna send it to you.
Send it over.
I'm at
Right.
But right now I have to bake some chicken for cats.
Yes, you have to bake chicken. Because Sandra's cats insist on the chicken being fed to them when it's warm from the oven.
Well, only one insists like that.
I sent you where I'm
Oh,
at.
wonderful. So Diana, what do you think you need to work on? Just out of curiosity, what are the areas you think need working on?
I think I need to work a little bit more on the body.
Yep, on the back. That's what I was thinking. I
Yeah.
think you're closer to done on the face. I think you're very close to being done on the face.
Yeah.
You
And
might
then
be
I have to work on the background. I don't know what to.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a black and white, but it has
Yes.
to have some gold in it. Otherwise,
It's just too
Yeah.
dull. Well, and we
Yeah.
know that your commissioner really understands that because they've accepted the first one. So it has to work with the first one. Diana, here's my challenge to you. I think you can do this in 2 hours and be done. Get it out.
all right.
So, and the only reason I say that is that there's these points in the painting where you're like 90% done, and then it gets really hard to know when to finish.
Yeah.
Right? Because you've been pushing so hard. This painting, in my mind, I know there's areas to work all over. I'm looking at it, but I'm going to tell you, if you work the back and you work the background, I don't think there'll just be a little tightening everywhere else.
Okay.
Who is that, Sandra? Who's that on your screen?
Oh, sorry, I'm always mute. It's Rabbit. He's the guy who requests the chicken warm out of the oven.
I love them so much. I forget, Brian, did you say you have pets or no pets?
Who, me?
Yeah,
I have 0 pets.
good for you. But you have children, right? I think I've heard them in the background.
No,
Oh,
you might
good
have.
for you.
You might have had my partner, but no kids. No, my apartment is too small for children and pets. I
Well,
think it'll
good for
be
you.
inhumane to force any of them to live in small spaces.
All right. And Tosh, I'm getting ahead of the game. I'm emailing you, everyone.
Oh, no need. I
Oh,
already
you've got the list. That's right. You've got the list.
I'll show you what I've been working on. So I have not
Yeah.
been drawing, but I've been in Excel.
Okay. Trying to make this. So I'm trying to make this just exactly flat.
Oops.
Yeah, there comes this moment when you're like, if I don't put a limit on this, I'll never finish it. I think the first beginning of the painting is kind of hard to start, and then the very end, because you're just always wondering to yourself, what should I do here?
Yeah.
Right. So some of you have joined in the middle of the year last year. So many of you haven't gotten a chance to actually experience these basics and these explanations. I found 2 things about it. I found that it's always helpful now to go back to the basics in January with the same exercises and the same explanations, because if you have done it, you're a little bit more, if you have done it, you're more, you know more about where you get tripped up in drawing. So these exercises show you, in a very fundamental way, where do I get tripped up in the drawing? It's easy to advance quickly and then be sort of caught because we forget the principles. And then for those who are new, like me, I found that as somebody who as an adult became an artist, I did not draw as a kid, that it was much more helpful for me to grab onto these techniques to help me, because I could tell that I wasn't looking at things the way they needed to be looked at. But my beginning teachers, you know, as a beginner and as somebody who is basically self-taught, I wasn't getting help in where I was making mistakes. I didn't know that the mistakes I was making were the mistakes everybody makes. Right? I didn't know that. So those of you who are working on this exercise, please feel free to share as you're working on it. Times when it's hard, feels hard, times when you're kind of interested, notions that you get as you're going through it. Or don't say, you know.
I have a question.
What's that?
So as I'm going, I can see that I start to feel like I know I've done something off, and I don't know how fast to try to work or how slow.
I'd go slow and try to find out where you're off.
Okay.
I'd go fast. We have a lot of time.
Right.
Right here, let me extend these down just in case so that they kind of actually reach the edge. Oh, Tosh Whedon, you're amazing. I'm gonna have to start paying you. And then you could just add new names on as they come on.
Yep. And that way we can like just enjoy the class and then feel it.
Yes, and then just do it right. Exactly. Now, last year I did a lot more with gridding, and this year I'm going to do a lot. Thank you, sweetie. This year I'm going to do less, because I really, so this is as close to gridding as we'll really get. What the gridding does is kind of show you how off we are, right? Like in terms of where we think things should be, how the left brain does things like say, well, the halfway point must be right here, because this is halfway down the body, right? Not thinking about the head as part of the equation. Like there's a lot of ideas. You will find that your left brain is giving you all kinds of information that's totally useless when it comes to drawing. And because you are all people who work with words, right? That is a super left brain activity. So this is really a departure. Your left brain is super smart. It's working all the time, unlike other people's left brains, who I won't mention. Trump, no, anyway, you know, dumb people. Like, he's like, so you're smart people. That's the thing, you're smart people. I shouldn't even use the term smart and dumb. That is so like false dichotomy in its way. But you know, for people who use words a lot, like me, I found the concepts that my words really got in the way all the time as I was drawing. But Tina, in sort of continuing answer to your question, my hope is as you observe that you're going off and you stop to problem solve it, I'm hoping that you're also thinking, okay, what are ways that I cannot be off, right, in the future? So as you're starting to do this, like, oh, maybe it helps me if I look at where all these start on the edge of each square, right? Before I do any inside stuff, maybe it helps. Observe when things feel hardest to you. In fact, if you're at an area that's super hard and you're frustrated, let me know. We'll talk about that too. I pretty much know where it is. I know what you're gonna say. So I can help you. The reason I know what you're going to say is that everybody makes the same mistake. I'm really fascinated by how people come to class and they want to tell me that they are particularly bad at drawing, right? Like they, not anybody else, but just them. They have a problem with this and that. And I'm like, yeah, you and everybody. This is a actual thing that happens. So it helps to kind of share, right? Oh, I'm not good at that. I can't get the eyes in the right place. I can't get the this in the right place. I have problems with that. I'm like, yeah, you have problems with that because everybody has problems with that. Let's understand the system, right, that is creating the problem and the thinking, and then we can kind of solve the problem. So, so problems are good. I want you to bring them up. Mistakes are good. Assume that any mistake you've made, everybody in this class, every one of my students in the whole world, there's a lot, every person who's ever tried to draw has already made that mistake. So assume that you are making the same mistakes that everybody else is, and that's awesome. Because once you've done 10,000 of those, you're going to be a good drawer.
I'm just finding it really hard not to look at it as a whole picture. I know that's exactly what you're telling me not to do.
You could fold up.
My eye keeps going to the hands and I'm panicking.
Yeah, so skip the hands right now. Skip the hands, skip any part. So I want you, perfect. So Pari, I want you to observe this. When you know what something is, you start to panic. When you don't know what it is, it's easier. So skip anything for the moment. Work the areas that feel doable and manageable. So I just finished a big painting of not a big painting, a medium-sized painting, 30 by 40 inches, of a very elaborate building in downtown Portland. It's an old, like, sort of Art Deco movie theater, and it's absurd, the level of detail it has. So I did not start my painting working on that detail. I worked all the other details, the ones that I could see, the bigger ones, so that by the time I could actually so that I could kind of lead into trying to lay in the details, right? That are the sort of more, the smaller details, but you never start with those. So your instinct is to start with that detail. And what you have to train yourself out of is not doing that. You need to train yourself into, I'm going to notice where everything is. And there's an incentive to do it because you don't have to deal with the difficulties, the most hard parts right away, right? You can deal with that. You can deal with that, but it's good. That's just your left brain. As you start to exercise your right brain, your left brain is screaming because she can't help you.
You think it's a female?
Well, in Pari's case, it is, right? It, I should say. They, I should call it a they. I should call it a they. They can't help you. The left brain is like screaming because it's freaking out. I don't know how to draw hands. I don't know how to draw hands. Hands are hard. Blah, 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 blah. And like, really, you're just like, so just skip the hands for now. I'll deal with that later when I have a better idea of where they all are.
And I read this book, and not only does it tell you to do it badly, it says, don't even look, I'm going to show you how it is.
Yeah,
and you do it.
Yeah,
and then when you've done a bad job, it says, see, you can't draw, you're terrible. Give this up.
This book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain?
Yes.
There's some really wonderful exercises in this book, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. I really love it. And I recommend everybody get it because from an intellectual standpoint, it explains things. But it's not just that. There is definitely a healthcare element. There's definitely a mental element, care element in the book, some of the exercises. I have a long-standing client. He's been taking drawing and painting with me for like 5 or 6 years, and he's a psychiatrist. So he sees 30 patients a week. And many of his patients he sees like 2 or 3 times a week. He says the ones that are really trying to get better he sees several times a week because, they can't like avoid therapy. So he had one woman that was extremely anxious. She was so anxious, she could not control her anxiety at all. And, once your anxiety kind of takes over, it becomes difficult to evaluate. Is it really problematic or am I just, being anxious about it? So he had her There's an exercise in drawing on the right side of the brain where you put your hand down and then you draw your hand without looking looking at the paper and not looking at your hand. Sorry, you draw your hand while not looking at the paper. So you're drawing, you're looking at your hand the whole time, and you're just sort of trying to guess on the paper where it is. So if she did that for about a year and a half, if she did that exercise for 5 minutes before she started her session, she was way more mentally healthy. She was way more able to remove herself from the part that got anxious and observe, oh, I'm getting anxious. That's why I can't handle it, right? Like she was able to control her anxiety. It stopped working when it became too easy. So we had to give her a new challenge, right? So there's something about the focus of, oh my God, I'm just looking at my hand, I'm looking at these lines, that kind of clears the mind of the other stuff.
It's a bit like meditation, isn't it?
It is. It's exactly like meditation. Did you see what Gina said about that?
You said it yesterday, and I can't remember, but I liked it.
Let me
Can't remember what it was
remember,
exactly.
I should play that sometime. I should send that video over to you guys so you can see it. Hold on, where are we? So Gina Chua, who is the big cheese at Reuters. Okay, great. Yes, Tashween, that's great. Get that, and this is a great way to like kind of use your skill. You know what I mean? Nobody ever has to do these assignments. You can totally work on your own thing. Do it and send it over to me as you're working on it. I love cartoons for comics for dealing with perspective issues. It's great. In fact, we'll probably take some exercises from that book at some point. So Gina Chua is a really big proponent of this program at Reuters. It's one of the reasons it's been going on for now in its 5th year, funded very well by the company. She's currently the executive editor of Reuters News, so she's close to the top there. And she's a wonderful artist, really great artist. And so I asked her like why she funds this program, and her response was, and it's on video, so I can send it over to you guys. Her response was, I used to think that meditation was emptying your mind. She said, I now believe that meditation is about filling your mind with one task. One task that's like, and drawing and painting are a great way to do that. It's one task that's so absorbing. It takes so much mental energy to try and do the task that you have no time for anything else. It's filling your mind with one thing. And that's what you're doing when you're drawing and painting. So it's not like, as we discussed yesterday, it's not relaxing like laying on the beach is relaxing or reading a good book is relaxing. It's relaxing the way going to a workout and how you feel afterward is the kind of relaxing it is.
I was thinking, or maybe like doing a puzzle, you know?
Or like doing a puzzle, right? Right, but in the moment you're just sort of caught, yeah. But if you're exercising in the right way, there'll be a point in your exercise where you're not really thinking about how hard it is. You're mostly just in the swing of doing it, right? The endorphins kick in, I don't know, whatever it is that you're doing. You kind of get into the task and you forget everything else. So this is, and people have a lot of anxiety about drawing. They have a tremendous amount of anxiety. I think this is a deep desire. I want you to imagine what your life would be like if you hadn't been taught to read, right? If you hadn't been taught to read, everybody in this group would be, well, anyone would have a much different experience of life, right? If you did not have that skill, if you couldn't read, can you imagine how frustrating your life would be? Can you imagine? You can't even like navigate outside. You can't read signs. You can't read a text on your phone. You can't read anything, right? Imagine this frustration level that you would feel if you had not been taught to read. I think that's the feeling people have because they haven't been taught to draw. So there is a myth that drawing is just for the talented. But in reality, drawing is a skill like anything else. It's a skill set like learning to read. And when you learn to do it, it opens up a whole new world of how to analyze what's happening in front of you. So that frustration that we all have of wanting to draw is not that you can't draw, it's that you can and you've never been taught how. Right?
I guess we were all discouraged by this one
everybody
kid
is
in class who
discouraged.
could do it.
Right, right, because the
And then
adults
if
around you
I
can't really do it.
That easily, then that means I can't do it.
Right. Well, but we know it's not exactly easy, right?
But now it's a different
Right? Like,
perspective. But as a
it's
kid,
not
you'd
exactly easy. But imagine if your teacher had discouraged you from trying to handwrite. Like learning to read. I mean, like, it's not like it's easy to learn to read. It's not like it's easy to learn to write. We spend many years doing that, but for some reason we feel like we should not give ourselves the same skill level. There's a lot of things that happen intellectually, and developmentally, brain-wise, for people when they start to do this. In fact, I know in the US, one of the things that's happened over the last 40 years is that these kind of rote, what were considered sort of rote, quote unquote, uncreative assignments where you had to copy something in cursive, right, over and over and over again on the board, those were considered bad lessons and they were gotten rid of. But in reality, this is what you're practicing right now. There's a whole set of things where your brain, when you're trying to copy something visually, your brain needs to see it, and then you need to get your hand to do it. If you watch little kids try to write, like a 5-year-olds or 6-year-olds try to write, you'll see them struggling with that. They can't even hold the pencil. Like manual dexterity, this sort of brain / manual dexterity function that you need for writing is something that happens between the ages of like 4 to 5 to 8 or 9, when you're really developing that. And it's not easy for kids, even really smart kids. It's not easy. I know because I've had a lot of super smart kids who were clients over the years who've tried to learn to draw between the ages of like 6 and 9. And I was able to observe this, but they just had, it's very normal developmental stage. It takes a couple of years to really kind of get your eye and your hand to be able to work together. It's a very specific skill set. And in the US, we've kind of stopped doing it because kids can type, right, in text. We've stopped using our hand. We started saying, oh no, just make them think up what they want. Emma Bergman, who is a student of mine who now teaches, who I've been working with since she was 12, I'm fascinated. She's in art school right now. And like the teachers are not teaching them any basics. Emma feels behind because she doesn't have a visual image that she's trying to create. So the teachers are actually trying to cultivate the kids to come up with nuanced, with no skills, like sort of they're valuing the one idea that they've done over and over and over again. Right? Like the one sort of image they've done over and over. That's now their style. And it's shocking to me. I'm like, well, can they draw? Can they draw what they see? You know, a lot of them, that's not really being taught. And what's being valued is this sort of ideas, concepts over technique. In my mind, the concepts will just come. The visual, the vision, your own vision will just come, but the skills need to be taught. And that there's a frustration level if you don't have it. You start to avoid things that you can't do, right? And then imagine being an artist and not being able to draw anything that you see. There are a lot out there, particularly in America.
They must have drawing lessons, but if you are painting lessons, they assume you can draw, or they just don't think it's necessary.
Yeah, I think when you go to art school, you're supposed
To know in America. You're supposed to know those.
You're supposed to be past that stage, so you.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And so that's why it's not taught very well. Yes, in America. I mean, do you think that's true in Sweden though, Diana? Was that true in your art school in Sweden? Okay. So in a lot of places, in other places where like technique is king, like in the former Soviet Union, absolutely that was true. Where I lived for many years and met many artists, like the basics were drilled into you. And on the flip side of that, like people didn't get a lot of time to freely express. They were really forced into realism all the time. Realism, Soviet style, which isn't really real at all, but there's a lot to unpack there in that statement. But they were kind of forced, they weren't really allowed to like play around. What I have found is that students who have come to me who trained themselves how to draw have trained themselves to draw in a way that kind of limits them once they stop understanding what's going on the paper. So there is a way that you teach yourself to draw, which is not the way that I am teaching you how to draw. Because you have to have a sense of the overall concepts, and most people just go from detail to detail as they're trying to teach themselves how to draw. And there are limits to that. You can't, you know, there's a point where you don't understand what's going on the paper, and you've got to know the rules to be able to make it work for you. So it's just an interesting, Jessica's prior is outside. There, wait, are you here, Jess? Are you here? Is she actually logged in with us? No, she's not logged in. Jessica Breyer is not logged in, but she is outside painting in the snow, which is her favorite place to be, probably in Central Park.
It's also very cold here. It's like 24 degrees and it feels like 13.
Oh my God.
24 Celsius
Uh,
or 24 Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit because you're in Canada, right?
New York.
New York. Oh,
So it's
so
very
24. 24.
I'm just
that's-
impressed that she's painting out in such cold weather.
She loves it. She's got electric socks. She has all this special gear. She's got like a thermos full of cocoa and rum.
Yeah, that's minus 4.4 Celsius. It's -2 in Washington, and it feels incredibly cold.
She is
I
a
love
total, talk about an addict. She is a total painting outside addict, and she loves the snow.
That's
I
awesome.
told her I wanted to come plein air painting with her, and she's like, don't come. I was like, I might get there in February, and she's like, you're
Oh
gonna
no,
need
not
to-
in
you're gonna
February.
need to ship over an extra set of clothes that you won't be able to fit in you're gonna need so much gear. I'm out painting. She has hand warmer, she has the whole, she's like,
Yeah, you would need hand warmers.
she's completely set up. It's really fantastic.
You can always paint from your car in the cold.
Right.
That's what I used to do.
Paint in your car.
And that's what Hopper used to do. He had taken out the back seats of his car so he could push back all the way and sit in the car and paint.
Oh, you're kidding. Hopper, the man who has defined what I feel like Hopper and Van Gogh are the people who have sort of defined what it is to be a contemporary artist, as in they influence all of us with their imagery.
Yeah, only that all Hopper's pictures are so frigging cold and there is no love in them. There is just,
well, he was a very unhappy human.
yeah, you can
He
see
was
it.
a very unhappy human.
You
But
can
you
see
know, that he captured, he was lonely, he was
Yeah.
kind of felt unappreciated. He seemed to sort of revel in being uncomfortable and then letting
Yeah.
everybody know about it. We all know those people,
Yeah,
right? We all know those people. So this would probably be, and it's annoying. I wonder, now I'm just looking for pictures of his car. But I feel like what's interesting is his imagery really speaks to contemporary life. There's kind of there's a way he simplifies things that people really jive with. There's a way there's a kind of unhappiness that I think
Yeah.
people really understand, right?
Yeah.
So funny. Like the people who are the most joyful, like who is like a really joyful artist? Robert Frost, I think, was a pretty joyful poet as an artist. And he was pretty much poor as hell life. And then when he was 80, I think people got together and bought him a house. But like really, he kind of like lived in really small circumstances for a long time. But he had a big impact. What painters are like really happy? Renoir, I think, was a fairly happy painter.
Matisse, was he happy?
I don't know.
I just think of that joyous circle that, you know, the people who are, do you know which one I'm talking about?
The Dorothy Parker and the vicious, the circle, the literary.
No, I'm talking about a Matisse painting where it's blue and figures are in a circle.
Oh, let's see.
I know what you're talking about, where they're all
You mean the dances?
Yes,
It's in the Museum of Modern Arts, I think, at the
Yes.
MoMA.
Oh, the circle of dancers. Yes, yes, yes. Well, that's an interesting question. When I look at that, I don't see joy. They look a little twisted to me. I'm looking at it right now, and I'm like, I'm not sure, but that I don't know. I know, you know, it's hard. A lot of artists, I do think there were artists that just really enjoyed their life and enjoyed themselves. You know who is like that? Rodin is really like that. Rodin had a really good life. He had a tremendous amount of success in his lifetime, probably a lot of sex.
and sex.
As opposed to sex.
A success, you know, he had like Rodin, when you look at the other Impressionists, none of them had the success that Rodin did. Rodin was kind of ahead of the game with them. But if you think about it, he was still doing very realistic stuff. He just had this way of displaying.
But then he got so romantic that he, you know, his assistant had to paint, had to tie the paintbrushes to his arm so he could.
Right. And also he lost his vision at the end of his life. Yeah, no, that's not Rodin. I'm thinking of
Monet.
Yeah, Monet is the one who went blind. Rodin, yes.
His paintings are more joyful though.
They are, but towards the end of his life, he lost his vision. He had cataracts. And
But you can't say that because people have drastic things happening to them at the end of their lives, but they're not joyful during life.
It's pretty well documented. It's written about.
No, I don't mean that. I meant
my comment.
He can still have had a joyful life and then terrible things happen at the end of it.
Right. That's generally true, right? As
You
your
live long
body
enough.
like falls apart. I'm reading a really fascinating book on aging called, oh gosh, I always forget the name of it. It's a good book by Connie Zweig. It's about kind of our negative images of aging and how they get in the way of us being able to enjoy what happens when you age. But the real issue about what happens when you age is you have to accept loss of everything. You have to accept that you lose everything, you lose your friends, you lose your body's ability to do what it has to do, you lose everything. If you're okay with that, if you can be okay with that, you have to hold that balance in a way. So the longer you live, yeah, absolutely. The more of those dichotomies you have to kind of hold in your head. I'm just trying to think. I think Renoir was a pretty happy painter.
It's interesting because, you know, when you learn, well, I didn't go to art school, so I didn't learn it at a more like high school. But when they never tell you whether they had a happy life or not. It's almost like they don't care.
Well, I think that's part of that projected, you get to do this, therefore you can't be happy, right? Like you're the gifted artist.
No, they didn't say they had a happy life. They just don't talk about personal life.
We don't talk about life.
I mean, except for Van Gogh, because with him.
Right, because he was historically unhappy and tortured. Right?
Well, because, you know, he cut his ears.
Right. He was historically unhappy and tortured, right? Yeah, and he painted for such a small amount of time. I think what Van Gogh gave us through his torture of his life, I'm assuming he was like bipolar or something like that. And so that's kind of like what, but of course there was there is evidence that he felt out of control of it and sort of at the mercy of it in a way that I think really caused him pain. But I think what's interesting about him is how much he achieved in such a short period of time in terms of pushing talking about living with, because he also didn't paint till he was in his late 20s. And he drew for the first 2 years from 28 to 30. So if you think about this, he was well behind all the other masters of his era. He couldn't draw as well as anybody else who had been going to art school for a long time and experiencing that. And so that kind of forced him into a simplicity with his painting, which has changed the way painting is. Absolutely changed it. Unfortunately for Van Gogh, he didn't get to experience the understanding of that, how important that was. I mean, I think he knew how important it was. I don't think he knew how much he was like the sort of epitome of the tortured artist. It's interesting ideas. How's it going, everybody who's doing this assignment? Huh?
It's been surprising how long it takes to draw some lines.
Yes. All right. Excellent. So that's what I want you to get. This is one of the things you're learning is how much time it takes to do something, right? And part of what you're doing is assessing where things are. That's part of the process, right? Is where do these go? Where do these things go in relation to other things? I often watch people as I start to teach a class where I'm like, okay, you'll see that I'll often give you a subject and I'll divide it in half vertically. And then I'm like, determine that, and then let's determine the width. And I can see people just completely check out. They're not interested in doing that. And but the problem is, if you don't do it, you're bound to get those proportions wrong. So it's kind of learning that like your first task as a drawer are to kind of figure out your bigger parameters. And that takes time. That takes time, right? To figure it out.
The problem is, I think a lot of maths is being able to see shapes, and I'm terrible at maths.
Is there a lot of maths is trying to see shapes?
Yeah, like you have to see shapes and numbers, and you have to like.
All right.
Be able to draw tables in your head.
Okay.
Not really.
So let's unpack that statement. Number one, I don't think anybody on this class feels super confident about seeing shapes. So that is why this whole lesson is on drawing shapes. I'm not sure I see the connection with maths. And not only do I not see the connection with maths, I see that you're saying this should be in my head already. And it's not something that can be in your head. When you're trying to draw, you need to look at what's on the paper. I think what's happening is your left brain is objecting to not being able to judge something without having to guess to work out where things are. That's not actually in your head. That's taking yourself out of your head and looking at the thing that you're trying to draw, right? It's much easier, sure, to go, oh, that's what that is. And not like, if I know that, it's in my head. So drawing is not an in your head thing. It's a looking at your subject and like trying to evaluate what's actually happening with your subject. In fact, it's a very empathetic action, right? Because you're actually looking at what's there versus what you think is there. So I want you to think about the depth of that statement. We spend a lot of our time as journalists trying to assess what's going on in a situation, right? So there is an aspect of it that's visual, that's a lot less judgmental, that the left brain can often get judgmental in its like assessment of a situation. Here's a great example. Who's pretty and who's ugly? When you are drawing a person and you're spending all your time trying to figure out where their elbow is in relation to their arm, in relation to their hand, where is the bottom of their nose versus the top of their eyes, you're not really thinking about whether they're pretty or ugly. You're just looking at where things are. You're kind of trying to assess that, right? But like when you just look at someone and you're like, oh, they're pretty or they're ugly. Like you're making a left brain assessment that's not really, well, it's just simple. It's just kind of oversimple for the situation. So what I think is happening is your brain is fighting to get outside of itself, right? You're fighting to get outside. Your left brain is trying to keep you in your head, and your right brain is fighting to get outside of your head into what's actually happening. So interesting. Well, I don't know if that made any sense. Probably not. Trying to put words on this stuff is really hard, as you'll find. It's why it's not taught very well. It's hard to explain what's happening. So don't worry, Pari, everybody is at the same place you're at, learning about shape. If you think that the more experienced people in this group are better at it, well, they have more practice, they have more mistakes behind them, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're better at it. I'd say they're probably getting better at judging how to fix it, and I include myself in that.
How to fix it is really important.
Right. It's not about getting it right. It's kind of guessing and then figuring it out. Right?
Yeah.
And all of us, even those of us who do this all the time, are constantly there. The people who can't do art are the ones who have to have everything be perfect the moment they lay it on the page. They want to decide that in advance. The people who get the perfectionists don't do well. Because in truth, you can't really make art without guessing and then correcting. So you have to make the mistake and then correct. You can't really do it, know if you're right, until you've tried it and then seeing that you're wrong. I want to show you a couple of things as we're working, by the way. One thing that can help, if you'll notice, is I'm putting a line here. Once you lay certain shapes down, like you determine the outside shapes, you can look, for example, at where this circle is in relation to the end of this line. You can see that they're pretty much lined up. So you know that this edge needs to line up with this circle. What else? You can see that this elbow needs to come out well past this chair. You go down. Here's a really good one. I was looking at it. So if the top and the bottom of the head are here and here, if you look at the top and the bottom and you go exactly one head down, it should come to the halfway point. So as you're starting to assess these things, you can start to using these vertical judgments of where things are related to everything else is helpful. Let's see. Geraldine, are you doing this upside down or did you just send this to us? Are you drawing this right side up or upside down?
I'm doing it upside down.
Okay, so you're just sending it to us right side up.
Yeah.
1, 2. So now, not bad. So, so far, and are you working on the bottom half now?
Yes.
Okay, so far, yes. Go ahead, everybody, send it in so far. Let's stop for a second and just send wherever you are in so far. Take a little stretch break, 7th inning stretch. We've got about 45 minutes left. So take a break, take a picture, and let's look at it. Sometimes things that you think are crappy are not really that crappy. They're much better when you stand back and you take a little break for a second. And Sandra and Tashmin and Diana, you can totally do the same thing with whatever you're working on.
Okay.
Would love to see it. Just take a break. Oh, you're working in a very interesting way, Pari. I like it. It's definitely coming along. Don't worry about it.
I did miss out all the bits I found hard.
Right. So don't worry, though. I think it's interesting because you're kind of moving around the whole thing. You're not trying to do too much. I like this. I like that. Jackie, excellent. Good job,
Wow,
you guys.
you
Good
did
job.
really well.
Coming along.
Yeah.
Diana, that's looking great. I love what you've done with the back. Julia, nice. So good. Excellent, guys, coming along.
Bit out of proportion, I think. It's as you
So
said,
why don't you
too
use,
big.
so why don't you use this technique to see where the edges of the thing are? Let me show you what I mean by this technique. I'm gonna actually sketch
Hey, sunshine.
a little set of shapes. Those of you who've taken figure drawing will definitely have seen this technique. I'm doing something called the envelope of shape. Okay, my pencil isn't working. Here, let me do that. So you'll notice I'm giving you kind of, if I was to like build a little special, here, I'm gonna do this. I'm building almost an envelope of shape. I guess technically I should do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna build an envelope of shape. I'm gonna do this, 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 and then this. So notice, what am I doing now? Those of you who have been here before, have done this before. What am I doing right now? What have I just done? What have I just given you to help you assess where things are? What is this?
You are determining sort of the outside shapes, right?
Yep, I'm determining the outside shapes and I'm giving you some negative shapes to work with. Negative space. What's negative space?
The air.
Not the actual figure.
The space that's not the figure,
It's around
right? So
Yeah.
when you're used to thinking about things in a left brain way, you do not think about the thing that is not the thing. But when you're constructing something, you have to get this shape right as well as this shape, right? So draw these little lines around the edge of the figure and help yourself. Julia, this will help you with your proportions. Notice where things start. So this starts in a little bit further. Wait, here, so I just a moment. There we go. Notice what's mostly straight. Notice what's kind of angled. Really kind of.
Yeah, it's
And
tricky.
yes, you can totally do all of this before you draw the face. You totally can. Here. This is where I found negative space to be super helpful when I was learning how to draw. Right? So you get these shapes right. It'll help you get the other things right. But it's a totally valid thing to say. Sandra, coming along. Oh yeah, nice.
So, yeah, but the nose,
Nose
You
is
know,
a
when I
little
look-
too low. The nose is a little too low.
actually,
bring
I
it up.
measured the thing. It's just a problem that when I look at the nose on the photo, I can see it's a nose. But when I do make the lines that I see, it just doesn't read like a nose.
Let me check something. I'm going to check something on your face.
I've
for a
really
second.
checked all the position, the measuring. The problem is the shape.
Yeah, you're right. Shape's fine. You know what I would do that I think would help?
Hmm.
Focus on this dark shape.
Hold on,
Getting
'cause
that
I can't
exactly
see.
right.
I can't see. I can't see. I can't see.
Sorry. Focus on this dark shape here between the eyes.
Oh,
and at
okay.
the top of
Yeah,
the nose.
I
I
would
think that will
distract you.
help you define and
Yeah.
make sure you've got those proportions right and the shape right. I think that's going to help you define the nose
Yeah.
better.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And then if you'll
Thank you.
notice, it also even kind of curves down. Good job, Sandra.
But the problem is, what I meant about the nose is the actual nose leather.
Yeah, you can't actually see it. Right.
But you can see on a photograph, that's what
Yeah,
it
you
is.
can.
But
Yeah.
once you do the lines, it doesn't look like that, that's all.
It will help when you get the darks in
Yeah,
because
okay.
he's so dramatically lit.
Yeah.
You'll notice that, and here's what's going to really help. Here, I can show you even more further. And so Sandra, you guys, is illustrating a really interesting point about drawing. If you have a concept of how the nose is supposed to look, your left brain's really going to get in the way of you drawing what is. What's going to help you, Sandra, is seeing not only this shape, but then see this little triangle down here of
Let me
dark?
see. Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me focus on you.
Yeah. See, so
Which
here,
triangle?
Here, I'll show you.
The very black one. Right.
There and here, these are actually attached right here. So you see, once you get this shape and that shape, what you're worried about is something called a lost edge. You can't see this part on the other side because it's in shadow. So the key, and actually to make things look real, you sometimes have lost edges. So the key is to get the shape of this shadow right, to really get what's happening with the nose. But what you're resisting is you want to see both sides of the nose, even though they
Not
are
necessarily,
but
on the right side, I've got his nostril, and I've got, but it doesn't look like a nose. I guess it's because
I think you're resisting. I think you're resisting the shapes that are there. Get those dark shapes in, and I think you're going to see it's going to feel better. So notice, this is not something that is easy. I want you to notice the language you're using. It doesn't look like a nose. It's not. No,
it doesn't read. It doesn't read like a nose.
It doesn't read as a nose, right? But part of the issue, and I'm trying to explain what it is that part of it you can't see because it's engulfed in shadow. And so the key to getting that to work is getting that shadow shape correct and then getting it in. It won't really read till you get your darks in.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's part of it.
It won't really read until you get your darks in.
I'm just worried that once I put paint on it, it's gonna look even worse if I don't know what it's supposed to look like.
I just want you guys to know that Sandra worries about this a lot, and she often does really amazing work. And occasionally she makes mistakes that she can't correct, but most of the time, this is, don't worry. The more you get into the process of darks and lights, as opposed to nose, not nose, the easier it's going to be for you. The less anxiety you're going to feel. The more often you do it, the more often you're going to see it's where the dark and light shapes meet. That's really the key, not what it is. But it's a fight.
I'll trust you, Leah.
Trust me. You should trust yourself. You've done so much marvelous work.
Yes, but
it's
but I also know that when I start painting, I lose my lines. And if I can't figure out the lines now, how am I going to feel when I've lost them?
So really what I like to do, Sandra, in that case is focus on the biggest dark and light shapes first and really working on getting those correct. So when a shadow is kind of hitting part of a subject, right? And then light is hitting part of a subject, there are these really dramatic areas where those shapes meet, and they tend to be bigger because they take up more space, right? They take up more than just the single plane that they're on. So if you focus on those first, it'll help you kind of locate where everything else is in relation. And sometimes that divides in a way that doesn't feel normal, right? Because it takes half the nose, part of the cheek, part of the, yada, yada, yada. It takes parts of things and obscures them. So it's more getting those bigger shapes first. And that's what a lot of the people are doing is they're doing this. They're avoiding, we're not working on the face or the hands until you get these outer shapes, you get these other things in, right? You get the things like, oh, there's a button, that's pretty easy, right? These two curved lines are pretty easy. I get that stuff in before I really start to focus on the details, because that is easier. It's just it's more manageable.
Okay, I'll have to trust that it's, sometimes it's true that when you paint, suddenly you think, oh, suddenly it reads, and you hadn't thought that it would. So
my bet is that almost every time you're getting the major darks and lights in first, right? Because what happens when you add the darks? When you add the darks are automatically, without even painting the lights, you're shaping the lights. Then it's just then it's adding in midtones, right? Which are a little bit harder to see, a little bit more defined, but really it's those bigger dark and light shapes. And as I say, if you add in the darks first, you get the bang for your buck. You get the immediate, because immediately you're seeing kind of the sort of the external shapes of the things, even if you're not seeing all the details. What do I have as an example?
I might do a grisaille because because then that would do that. That would put the dogs.
Yeah, that's the thinking. The thinking is away from the thing and more into how these light and dark shapes interact. When I'm working on something, just looking to see if I can show you guys something I've been working on where detail is there, but it's done in stages. What do I have here?
So Leah, how do you think the horse looks now?
Let me see. Did you just send it? Oh, did you send it with the, oh, I see. Hold on. Sorry, it's up a little bit farther than I thought. I love the horse right now.
Yeah,
I love the horse. I'd say let's go into the background.
okay, what would I do with the
Well, what did you do with the other one? Do you remember?
Yeah, I actually had a yellow background and I did just the white and blue over it, light and gray.
But this could be a little less, I would put more yellow and white in over the blues to obscure them a little bit more.
Yeah.
What I would do now, Diana, is get your background a little bit more even tone, so less darks and lights, more subtle, but also so that it's not, because right now it's a little bit, the blue is kind of popping forward in the background, right? Because so, but the other thing I do is I look at where your horse meets the background and really push those edges. So if they're hard edges, really push them. If there's a little bit of fur coming out, really push them. You've kind of done that, but there might be a tiny bit of refining you can do, and then you might find you're done. There might be one or two, or at least you'll know what else needs to be done. Diana's working on something that's really interesting because there's a point where if you don't get in your background is as important as your foreground, as the subject. Talk about the space that is not the subject, right? Yeah. The background can compete with your subject. Your background should be pushing back, but your background should also be pushing your subject forward. Also in Diana's background, it's the lightest part of the painting and it's meeting the darkest part of the painting, which is the horse. So in that edge where the light background meets the dark horse, which is everywhere, you really pay attention to the edges because that's where, is this a soft edge here? Are there little hairs flying up? Is there, right? A tiny bit of detail I can convey that can really push my horse forward, but right at the edge. Once you work the edges, then you're like, maybe I'm done. Like that feeling that Sandra said, where you're like, wait a minute, all of a sudden I'm done. I'm working on right now, trying to finish. I'm Diana, exactly where you are in this giant canvas, this 8-foot one. And it's a bridge over a fairly simplistic forest, but I swear to God, at least 2/3 of the painting is sky. And with 8 feet, that's a lot. So my whole task is to, like today, work on the sky, make the sky have some dynamism, but still be less competitive than, less sort of softer, I should say, than what's happening with the structure I'm trying to push forward. And I have a feeling once I get the sky in, that's going to be what my structure needs, more than actual tons of work around the edges, you know, more than tons of work on the structure. It's like the background needs to be put in. Diana,
did you send a photo of it, Leah?
Oh, you want me to send it over?
Oh, just show it to us like this. Show it to us like this. Sorry, I missed it.
It's 8 feet, so I cannot.
No, I'll just show it. Oh, I see.
It's 8 feet and it's not here. Hold on, I'll show it to you. I have a picture of it. I'll show you at the painting, the place where it is right now. I will show you, and then you can see what I need to do. Here's where it is right now.
Wow. Wow.
So what I want is for the sky to have this soft green right? That starts at the edge and kind of trails off into gray. Right now, if I don't, and look at how much sky there is in that painting. It's like as much sky as there is bridge. God damn it. so now.
Yeah. I
So
like it.
now I have to go in. So I need to soften that green that's there with more gray on top.
Yes.
So that there's like little, and there's a corner on the top left, which is still more blue sky. The commissioner wants more green in their gray, less blue in their gray. So I have to kind of go over everything, the whole sky, to be able to make that push back enough so that my bridge comes forward. However, it's important that that green be there. So, but I really can't do anything else with the bridge. The bridge might even be done for all I know. It may just literally be working around the bridge.
Yeah, I like the glow you have at the bottom of the sky.
Yeah, that's right. That's
and then at the top green is just too green.
The top green is, yeah. It had to go in and then stuff goes over it. So just like what you're doing with your blue, right? I'm doing the exact same thing. So you and I are doing the same thing today.
Yeah, we are.
We're doing the same thing today. Julia, congratulations. Now I want you to look at two things. I want you to look at this circle and compare it to this circle. This one is longer. I'm just giving you little tiny hints here. Look at the difference. If I put my bottom circle of the glasses across, there's a significant, this comes up much higher. So this needs to come down lower. It's kind of more of a bigger oval. You struggled with this. I'm going to tell you, I know exactly why you struggled with this. You struggle with this because you're trying to make these two things the same size, but they are not. Got it? I'm just doing the little tiny things. This shape here, I'm going to help you. Thank you for being the guinea pig here.
My proportions were off on.
Yep.
On
so now you're fixing them.
It was too long.
Now your job is to fix them. So that's your job. You've got a little bit of time left in class. So that's what happens when you race. So if you'll notice here, you didn't bring this space wide enough, which means this is squished, right? This shape is squished.
I think that shape is just too long. I think the whole thing
it's not too long. It's not too long. You're not hearing me. It's too narrow. It needs to be wider. See, you think the thing is one problem. I'm looking at this. It is absolutely not too long. You've got that proportion right. It's not wide enough. Okay. See, yours is going like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
It's not too long. It's not wide enough. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is a little bit, here's where it's down.
It's all wrong in the middle. Yeah.
It's not all wrong in the middle. There's a few areas that need to come up. Please start problem solving those. I want you to, I want you to work on this. So these two things are a little bit too low. Bring them up and it will help you figure out these ones. You're going to find that your hand is not as off as you think, but these buttons could come up a little bit closer because here's the, so work on what, and you don't have to do everything, right? But my point is this, if you're going to walk around and beat yourself up, you might as well work on fixing it. Right? Fix it. One step at a time. Notice where Julia, I've seen you perform amazingly well in classes. So I'm not in any way ripping you a new one. You may be doing that for yourself, but I swear to God, the changes that need to be made are small. But I want you to observe where you leap ahead and where you go off the rails. And notice that you're thinking, and here's another thing you can do. Look at this. 1, 2, 3. 3 heads down is where this hand ends. So if you want to check that, you can start there. Make sure you've got this right. Then these corrections get a little bit easier.
Yeah, that is surprisingly accurate.
Correct. So you just made this too small. You just need to bring the top areas up. You don't have to redraw the whole hand. You just need to bring areas up. So that's where I want you to get to with this. That's what this exercise really teaches you. Also, if anybody thought Picasso couldn't draw, if this looks like a simple drawing, it is absolutely not, right? There's a lot going on here. And interestingly, he actually has a pretty accurate description of how, like, this is physically kind of how much space a person takes up when they're sitting down. Is about 5 heads. So it's interesting. This is actually correct perspective, right? Because the knee's kind of coming towards you, yet he still manages to infuse a little wacky in it, but it doesn't mean he doesn't know what he's doing.
Leah,
Yeah.
so in that sense, are the lenses different sizes because of foreshortening? Is that why?
Are the what?
Foreshortening? Is that
Yes, exactly. Well, yes, that partly that's true. Actually, yes, it's true, but what he's done is reverse it. Oh no, actually, that's a really good question. I'm going to put this upside down so I can see. Is he playing with that? Yeah, he's actually kind of fucking with you a little bit there.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, he's kind of fucking with you a little bit there. He made this bigger than that. So that's the way that Picasso's like, it should technically be the other way around.
And then also looking at it upside down is like another level
of like, right? Notice I had to look at it right side up to make sure I had that correct. Yes, absolutely. Fantastic observation. Yes, in truth, if we were showing this, he is like, and notice that's the thing that we go to almost immediately, that little wonk that he's put into the process, that little wonk. And then you kind of wonder, why did he do that? You know, like, it's interesting. Did he do it sort of specifically? Did he do it because there's a way that, like, Stravinsky kind of looks at you where he quirks one eyebrow up and, you know, makes his eye look really big? There's something funny happening there. That'd be interesting to see what Picasso was getting at. Like, he's conveying something about character. Or maybe he's just fucking with this. I don't know.
I gave it another layer. I'm gonna see this. It's getting closer, but it's.
Let's see. Can I see the original source, Diana, too? Can you send that over again? Maybe I'll have an idea for you. Do the horse irises need sort of reflected light in them?
There is reflective light.
You might put reflective light in the eyes, that might help. And sometimes when there's reflected light, there's also, I can't see, but I'll take a look when you send it over. Sometimes there's like that little light lid underneath too, that if you kind of express that a little bit, well, it's the lower lid, right? That's like sticking up.
That's because it's wet, so it's shiny.
Also because it's facing the light. So it tends to be, it's partly that it's shiny, but it's also that it's
a picture I have, but I'll send it to you.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is if it isn't in the picture, you can add it.
Yeah, it's not in the picture. It's in the picture as I have it.
It's in the pictures you have it. Maybe a little bit more. It's looking really good. Okay, so background feels dialed in to me. Let's see. I would say, you know what you can do? If you look at the eyes on the edge here,
yeah.
I'm gonna blow it up right here. You can see more of a little bit more light coming up and shaping it.
Okay.
And then, so what I would do is go into the eye area and really push that light, these light shapes around the eye. There's a tiny little, that'll help you, because really, what is it? What has Sandra taught us after all this time? It's the eyes that everybody really wants to see the detail. So I just push it up really big. And then over here as well, there's this little light bit of the iris down here.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Just look really close and push those
Okay.
details. And
Yeah,
I think
push
you're going to
them
feel
more.
better.
Push them
Yeah.
more.
You might even find yourself making the dark and push them a little bit more. You might find that you're even making the eye a little bit bigger as you do that, but you'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I think you need to go.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'll do it. But not today, because now I'm gonna have to leave you
Go.
guys.
And work. Don't tell me you're going to work today.
Yes, I am.
Are you going into the office?
No.
Okay, good.
I'm not, but I'm working.
Oh.
And maybe I'll find motivation to get dressed too.
Well, don't put any pressure on yourself.
See
Those
you
are pretty
maybe
stylish
tomorrow.
looking pajamas. See you tomorrow. There's
Bye,
no
Diana.
There's no pastel landscapes tomorrow. That will start next week. But this week, there is definitely a painting class on Sunday. It's going to be oil paint. The demos will be done in oil, but and that's not too bad for you, Pari. It's like, I don't know. And Julia, I think it's, what is it, like 7:30 at night?
I'll be
Something
on
like
my 11-hour shift.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'll
So,
catch up with the videos.
right. So it's a lot like the stuff that you did on Friday. If I'll be working in oil, so the focus will be on oil, but excellent. Bettina, excellent. All right, I'm going to look here.
It's not perfect, but I really felt like I could see more than I could in the past, and I don't know.
Yes. So do you want me to show you one area that if you corrected it would help with a lot of things?
Sure.
All right. So one of the things I observed, as you see, is that if I find the top and the bottom of the head and I go here, it brings me to the halfway point. And if I go here, it brings me to the bottom of this hand. If you do that, 1, 2, 3, look at where your hand is, in the bottom of your hand is in relation to where the third head goes. See how much higher yours is? I'm going to show you. 1, 2, 3. Your hand should be down here.
Okay.
Right? Not a big deal. I'm just, and yes, that's all what I'm really crediting you with is, yeah, you absolutely are you're getting more, you're learning more, you're able to see more. That's really fantastic. But that's one of the things I can show you proportionally is that your hand came up. So while Julia made hers a little bit too long, right? You made yours too short. So that scrunches up what's happening here, which scrunches up. And actually, I think your top is okay. So for you, this is in the right place. It's just this that needs to come down a little bit more. Try making that correction and seeing what happens. Let's see.
You know, Leah, as you're doing some of your kind of sketches on top, I'm thinking,
yes.
Okay, I can't see this so well. So, you know, I went and got the Kandinsky picture in the book, the left side of the book. And you know, it's opposite. It's the other way around. Can you see that?
It's the other way around. Yeah.
It's like, I was like, whoa. That's really kind of fried my brain now.
Now that really messes with your head. I should go in and correct that. I have it going in both directions and I always forget which one is the one.
I just like, well,
sorry, didn't mean to mess with your head there. That's total head messing. That's like Picasso's level head messing.
Leah, I don't think I can fix that thing that you asked me to fix because it'll mess up my chair and everything else in relation. Like I see like when I was doing this, I saw that the holes in the sleeve near the chair, you know, those little keyhole shapes.
These are buttons.
Yeah, right. Those shapes, I can tell like that shape, that whole area is
too high.
It's too high and too big. Like, so I
All
can't
right.
fix the hands without messing up. I'd have to fix everything.
Well, you don't have to fix everything, but you have to fix the things that are to here. Don't go into that hole. So what I would say is you've got 15 minutes left. See what you can fix in 15 minutes.
Okay. And I think what I'm also trying to express is the things that you can see are not what my brain is able to see right now.
Sure.
So like what you see, I can see something's off, but I'm not able to see enough to know how to fix.
Well, what I'm showing you is how to figure that out. So what you need to do, start by bringing your hand down here to the right location, then erase everything here and just try to get these 6 shapes.
Instead of saying, tell me which line of the hand.
This line of the hand is up here. You put this up here. So you need to bring it down to where it's supposed to be, which is 1 head from the center. So you need to measure your head, go to your center line, measure your head from top to bottom, from the top of the head to the chin like this, go to the center, go down 1 head and mark it. That's where your hand is. The bottom of your hand is. Right here.
Okay. It's a lot. It's not just a little bit. All right.
Actually, now hold on. Now I'm looking at this again. Maybe I was wrong the first time. Yeah, it's not, you know what, Bettina, it's about, you have it about here. It's about 3 millimeters down. It's about 3 millimeters down. So it's really not that much. It's okay if your head feels muddled. This is why I'm having you do this. I'm wanting you to get like where things go off. And then I'm going to give you as much suggestion as I can, but it's inaccurate to say the whole thing is off. What's accurate is to say these pieces are off, right? Like it's more, because saying the whole thing is off is just a way of saying that everything is off is a way of like discrediting the entire drawing, and that's not helpful, right? So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's weird when I do this. 1, 2, 3. Yep. It really is just 1 head down. It's just 1 head down from the chin to the top of the head. Yep. And gone down about 3 millimeters. Then you see where these things are in relation. Just see what you can do. The idea of this is not to try and fix everything. The idea is to see what can I fix? And then what needs to be adjusted. You're kind of, what you're doing is that I'm attached to my lines. They must be correct. That's a very left brain way of thinking about it. What you want to think is, oh, at any point I have to get rid of anything here. If I haven't checked its proportions, if I haven't checked the measurements right, it's how to like go back in. But I get also that there's a kind of inherent frustration with this drawing because you're never going to get it exactly right. That's what happens when you copy a master. So just so that you know, in the former Soviet Union, every art student has to spend a lot of time drawing and painting masters, and it's hard. So the idea is not necessarily to get it right, but the idea is to kind of learn what the master, learn from the master while trying to do what the master is doing. So in essence, this is not going to be a super satisfying drawing at the end of it. That's why I used to stop teaching it. But now I think you guys are at a place where you can accept an exercise for just what it is, right? Which is, I'm going to do my best. I'm going to learn what I can learn. And as you know, we're going to eventually get back to working from photographs. Good, Jackie. Coming along. Yeah. What can I think? I'm trying to think if there's anything. Did you do any fixes, Jackie?
I mean, I did. I've been fidgeting with, I've been fidgeting with the head.
I see that. And I think it's better. It's a little bit more curved out. So let's see, I'm gonna see if I can show you. So a little bit, if you see, you've got yours straight like this kind of curves just slightly
Yeah.
out.
Oh, okay.
Also, the ear is bigger,
Okay.
kind of extends out. So that's what's really happening. You've made the ear smaller,
Uh-huh.
but really the ear needs to extend out, which means that the head will then extend out a little bit wider.
Okay.
That makes sense? Try that.
Okay.
Also, I'm gonna, nope, you got that right. Okay. Yeah, these hands are a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
I just want to make that clear. They're a pain in the butt. They're really a pain. This is not necessarily going to be fun. And I appreciate you guys kind of coming through it. Let's see. Geraldine. I'm going to look at yours upside down too. 1, 2, 3. Good proportions there. Nice work. I feel like, Geraldine, I'm just looking to see. I think this shape, okay, so here, I think this shape slopes down more. Yours goes across, this comes down, and it's a little bit wider here.
Right.
Can you make that wider and see what that does to what the sleeve and that's what's happening here? I'm just trying to give each of you guys a thing to look at.
Yeah. I can see, it slopes down more. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, Jackie. I was looking at the wrong one. I was looking at Geraldine's when I was doing this.
Oh.
That was the problem.
Oh.
Didn't you notice that?
No.
See here.
No,
Yeah.
I couldn't see properly.
Yeah. Definitely your ear is way too small.
Yep.
That's part of what's like going on here. The ear should be twice the size.
Okay.
The ear is really, if you want to measure, is as tall as this, and this eyeglass can come out a little bit to the right more and come up a little higher or go down a little lower. Oops, I'm definitely getting to battery saving time. Hang on, I'm going to move over here so we can plug it in. Great work, by the way, you guys. I mean, I appreciate your kind of pushing through with this. I think the nice thing about this is who really cares, right? If we get this exactly right, right? I mean, there's the obsession with wanting to do it, and I appreciate the work you've put into it, but I want you to let go of the final results on this one. What we're really pushing is where we make our mistakes, and then how do I start to address those rather than the whole thing is off, right? Which notice Julia went into, Bettina went into, everybody who started to get there that's a kind of panic response, like anxious. And then it's like, I can't see it. So I'm trying to help you see it, but don't worry, as you're like, all of this is just learning when we're off and when we're on. I'm able to see it better now because I've been doing this full time for 20 years, right? Like, think about how much better, as Bettina, as you said, think about how much better you are at this than you were a year ago when you started.
So what's really valuable for me, since I teach writing, is obviously my students don't like revising, and
and you're not liking the revising either.
Well, no, what I'm feeling is I haven't changed a thing since you asked me to, because
you don't feel like you know how.
I'm mentally done, and I'm so satisfied with what I produced here. Which is what's making me feel what my students must be feeling like. I don't know. She really,
yeah, right. Like, I'm just like, here's
I can't believe I did this much. This is good to me.
That's absolutely right, Bettina. That's absolutely right. What you might try is putting it away. There is a point where your brain's just like, I'm fucking done. I'm totally done. I am so done. Done. That's really great. Yeah, no, it's really true. And what you, of course, can see so clearly, because this is what you do for a living. Of course, they're like, what? Like, I generally followed your formula. I have your rules. And you're like, no, let's make the transitions more elegant. Let's find better words. Stop repeating this word over and over, whatever it is that they're doing. You're absolutely right. What you might do, if you have the stomach for it, is to return to it tomorrow and see if you're more sort of able to fix those things. I also get to a point where I'm like, I can't look at this anymore. So if I'm working on a highly detailed painting, I very often am like, I'm only going to do this much. And then I'm going to come back to it. Then you stop being fresh. You stop being able to see it. But it often helps to get away from it, put it up somewhere, put it on your refrigerator or something, print out the source next to it. I'll send you guys the source, since obviously I accidentally flipped this the image. And actually I will, you know, I have this in many forms. So Julie, I'm going to go back and like clean up. You know, what often will happen is I would, in the past, is I'd be like, shit, I need that and I don't have the book. So I'll just do a search on the website and pull up what I have, like the images, and people will scan it in reverse.
It's so interesting because I've done this before and I've done it from the book, and it is the other way around. And I didn't
the other way around
until just now. Like, I know Julia said it before, but I wasn't looking at it.
Right. I don't, as long as it's not there confusing you, like there shouldn't be any problem.
No.
Right. Regardless. But if you decide to go from the book to the book, I should probably have it match the book.
Because it's upside down, your brain doesn't twig. I think that's why.
Yeah, you're not so concerned, right?
It was when I looked at it the other way in the book, and I was like,
well, yeah, if that's impossible, you can't flip that in your head. You have to have that flipped for you. So yes, don't go there. But I'll make sure to go through anyway. So I have many copies of this source saved all over my computer, and I haven't really been careful about what direction it is. So I'll check it. But of course, in the assignment, it doesn't really matter. But in the book, it's like, but the book has it flipped the other way. You've also explained for me, I had a student on Thursday that was trying to draw. I was teaching like drawing basics, and she was working from a photo and then trying to flip the photo. And I don't think she had really great results. And I'm like, well, of course you don't have great results, because what you're looking at is not supporting what it is that, you know, we're doing. She was taking a different photo than what I'd given them to try and translate what I was saying. And it was too complicated, because like what the photo was doing was not what I was having people do. And then she was trying. So yeah, it's like, it's too many flips.
But it's interesting, Leah, working like this, because it's like a jigsaw puzzle. And it helps to focus on just one section, so that you don't feel overwhelmed.
It does, right? That's what keeps you from losing your mind, is not to do the whole thing. I like to think about it. So remember when we were talking to Sandra about get the shadow shapes, the bigger ones, right? In first. Once you get the dark and light shapes, the bigger ones in first, I like to start with the biggest ones and then kind of move inward to the smaller details, to where Diana is on her horse, which is getting to the very small details of the eyes, right? The little shapes that are around the eyes. We don't start with that, we end with that. So we kind of start from bigger shapes and then move to smaller shapes. Yeah, it's like, it does help kind of break this up into tasks, so that you have a sense of also how long it takes to do something. I think we have this idea it should magically be easy, and it's not, right? I mean, or it's a task like anything else, and you have a pretty good sense of your tasks in your job, right? How long it takes to do things, and even more importantly, as Bettina pointed out, your students do not, which is one of the things that you're teaching them. It's like a timing thing, when to do things, and then what kind of attention and focus comes on doing it. Right. And also that these big pushes leave you like kind of exhausted. So, you know, Bettina, you might tell them, start fresh when you're the best. Look at these revisions I've given you, and like, don't do this now because you can't see it, but start like look at this when you're fresh in the morning, fresh in the evening, you know, when is your best time to work, figure that out, and then look at it. Because that's the only way we'll really push ourselves to do it. Really wonderful work today, you guys. We're at 10 o'clock here.